Hello and welcome back to Tutoring with Gavin. In this video tutorial, I'll be examining the main themes of the play Macbeth by William Shakespeare. Theme 1. Fate versus free will. Shakespeare never answers the question of whether free will or fate determines a person's future. Macbeth may or may not be fated to be king, but he and his wife decide that they will murder Duncan in order to obtain the crown after the idea has been planted in their heads by the weird sisters. Even if he is fated to become king, he will decide the nature and timing of his crowning. In Act 1, Scene 3, in an aside to himself, Macbeth says, "If chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir." This suggests that at this stage of the play, he believes in fate and is happy to let it run its course. However, his wife seems not to trust this to fate because she fears that her husband lacks the will or the skills to succeed, and sets in motion a plan to kill Duncan that is of her own free will. After some persuasion, Macbeth goes along with it against his better judgment. There's an element of ambiguity regarding fate versus free will. Later, when planning to kill Banquo, because of his apparent faith in fate, he is angry about his friend's children subsequently becoming king. He says, "Come fate into the list, and champion me to the utterance." It seems ironic that he is asking fate to help him change the future. In Act 3, Scene 5, Hecate is talking about Macbeth. "He shall spurn fate," which suggests that he has contempt for fate and is acting on his own free will. Has Macbeth's attitude to fate changed by this point in the play? And yet Macbeth returns to the Weird Sisters for more information about the future, which gives him more confidence that he cannot be defeated. This could suggest that he has complete faith in fate as he becomes overconfident, and when Birnam Wood is finally seen to move to Dunsinane Hill and Macduff reveals he was born unnaturally, he seems to accept his fate at last. In the end, it is his faith in fate that causes his downfall. Theme 2. The supernatural. The first characters we meet are the three witches and their prophecies which come true and drive the story forward. There are hints of supernatural events during the play. For example, Lennox tells Macbeth that on the night of Duncan's murder, some say the earth was feverish and did shake. This could be seen as God showing anger, but it also could simply be a mild earthquake, a very natural event. In Act 2, Scene 4, Ross talks of witnessing Duncan's horses eating each other in a wild frenzy, but again, this could be explained by illness. There is plenty of ambiguity whether superstition or mental illness is responsible for some of the apparitions seen by Macbeth, such as the dagger and the ghost of Banquo, which suggests that Shakespeare was not convinced that supernatural had any part to play in Jacobean life. After the second predictions by the Weird Sisters, it is clear that they can all be explained, with Birnam Wood being cut down and carried by an army, and Macduff explaining that he was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. The Weird Sisters could simply be planning tricks with Macbeth's instability, due to his uncontrolled ambition and belief in the supernatural. For more information on witchcraft, you can watch my video tutorial on context. Theme 3. One of the most important themes of Macbeth is uncontrolled ambition, and we see this in both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. They're both tempted by the prediction of the Weird Sisters, who plant this notion of greatness upon them and thereby unleash unbridled ambition. Lady Macbeth seems the most ambitious at the start of the play and will readily do a deal with the devil in order to achieve her dream. Lady Macbeth says of her husband, "Art not without ambition," and later in Act 1 he concludes that he has only vaulting ambition, which suggests he does not have the skills to achieve greatness. Shakespeare seems to be suggesting that an uncontrolled ambition can lead to evil acts. Ambition begins to resemble a disease that has taken hold of the Macbeths. Lady Macbeth describes the evil needed to fulfill her ambition as the illness. Theme 4. Good and evil. Initially, Macbeth appears heroic and good, but the act of regicide has infected him with evil that grows until he is killing without a second thought. We have scorched the snake, not killed it. The image of the serpent makes the audience think of the devil, and when he wipes out Macduff's entire family, we realise there is nothing good remaining inside of him. Lady Macbeth invites evil spirits into her mind. "Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts." Her ambition seems to have overtaken her true nature initially. She insists that she would have dashed the brains out of her own child, as if to prove her evil credentials. And yet by the end of the play, she's become overwhelmed by guilt. The Weird Sisters are also presented as evil, catalysts in the unnecessary series of brutal murders with their trickery and spells. Other characters represent good, including Duncan, Banquo, Macduff and Malcolm, and provide an antithesis to the evil of Macbeth. Duncan and Malcolm represent benevolent leaders compared to the tyrant Macbeth. Theme 5. Violence, courage and masculinity. Characters in Macbeth frequently dwell on issues of gender. Lady Macbeth manipulates her husband by questioning his manhood. "When you durst do it, then you were a man," and wishes that she herself could be unsexed. In the same persuasive manner that Lady Macbeth convinces her husband to murder, Macbeth provokes the murderers he hires to kill Banquo by questioning their manhood. Such acts show that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth equate masculinity with naked aggression, and whenever they talk about manhood, violence soon follows. Lady Macbeth provides the brains and the will behind her husband's plotting. Lady Macbeth's behaviour certainly shows that women can be as ambitious and cruel as men, whether because of the constraints of her society or because she is not fearless enough to kill. Lady Macbeth relies on deception and manipulation rather than violence to achieve her ends. Ultimately, the play does put forth a revised and less destructive definition of manhood. When Macduff learns of the murders of his wife and children, Malcolm consoles him by encouraging him to take the news in manly fashion by seeking revenge upon Macbeth. Macduff shows the young prince that he has a mistaken understanding of masculinity. To Malcolm's suggestion, dispute it like a man, Macduff replies, I shall do so, but I must also feel it as a man. Theme 6. Loyalty and guilt. Loyalty and guilt are strong themes in Macbeth. Duncan clearly values loyalty. He has the first Thane of Cawdor executed and rewards Macbeth by making him the new Thane. Duncan is in the middle of talking about absolute trust in Act 1, Scene 4, when Macbeth enters. Macbeth talks about the loyalty I owe and his duties to Duncan. Loyalty is also very important to Banquo. He will not desert Duncan, but he could be seen as not acting decisively enough to prevent the assassination, and therefore questioning his own motive. Macbeth wants to be loyal. In Act 1, Scene 7, he says, I am his kinsman and his subject, but his ambition and misguided sense of manhood allows him to be persuaded by his wife. Macbeth does demonstrate guilt. He is unsure before the murder and regrets it immediately afterwards. He tells his wife, Macbeth does murder sleep. Sleep symbolises peace of the mind. His guilt will prevent him ever sleeping peacefully again. Lady Macbeth is the opposite. She seems to show no guilt at the time of the murder of Duncan and even talks about how little water cleans away the blood. And yet her increasing madness later on is a sign of her guilt, and she imagines her hands to be stained with blood. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. Theme 7. Appearances and reality. The contrast between what is real and how things appear is also important in the play. The theme of false appearances is clear from the opening scene when the Weird Sisters chant, fair is foul and foul is fair. They later talk in riddles to Macbeth, with predictions appearing to benefit him while luring him into a trap he cannot foresee. The dagger scene, when Macbeth is not sure if he can trust his eyes, is only one of many references to this theme. For instance, he sees Banquo's ghost at the banquet and Lady Macbeth imagines blood on her hands. What the characters wear and how they appear to others is also an important aspect of this theme. There are several references to clothing and appearances in the play, such as when Macbeth asks Ross and Angus, why do you dress me in borrowed robes? In Act 1, Scene 5, Lady Macbeth tells her husband to look like the innocent flower but be the serpent under it, which requires him to put on an act. Later in Act 3, Scene 2, Macbeth has changed and is now telling his wife, make our faces visage to our hearts, disguising what they are. Lady Macbeth appears skilled in deceit, but Macbeth has learned quickly how to wear a mask to hide his true intent. Well, I hope this video tutorial has helped you in your revision. Please subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up if you found it useful. Until next time.